Hello, hello. Testing, testing. We are live, I think. Hey everyone. Please let me know if you can hear me all right and if you can see the screen. Just checking. Hey Eman, cool, awesome. So YouTube is good to go. Twitch as well. Awesome. Thank you guys. All right, welcome to the stream. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining. I'm just like finishing setup here. I might be a little bit slow today. I had a bit of an accident a couple of days ago, and my vision is a bit, it's a bit blurry. It's all right. It's getting better, but you know, I might have to, take a break or something because my left eye I kind of like see properly. So we'll see how we go. Maybe we can get some weird stuff out of this current state of vision. Cool. All right, so we are good to go. Everything is properly working. Alrighty. So straight away, let me just tell you guys that today is like super exciting day because and it sort of like aligned nicely with this stream because we just opened the Extra Mile course for enrollment, and it's been about a year that we've been planning it. So like this guy here above me, that's the demo, the character that we use in the brand new course, and it is open, so you can just go to the extramilecourse.com or the 3D concept artist, and you will see it in there. So super excited about that. If you have questions about that course as I go through what I'm going to be showing you today in ZBrush, and continue with this weird looking dolphin guy or beluga whale guy. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, super excited about this this course, and it's been a long time since the last time that I opened enrollment, so it's good to finally finish a brand new course and updating it, and now just dedicate some time to the new students. So really exciting about that. All right, so we're gonna continue with this guy. I'm just sorry, I'm just using the 3D mouse. By the way, this is a really cool thing. It's completely unrelated to anything, but this is the 3D Connection wireless mouse, and it is fantastic. It just sort of like, even if I just shake it, it's so sensitive. Look how if I shake it, it just sort of like moves the character about, which is pretty. I mean, that's not the intended use, but it's pretty cool. It allows you to work a lot faster, especially just when you get closer to your model. I mean, you can use the control key, and I have it like if I use just my pen, I can do this. But it's nice to just do like subtle movements as you sculpt. Anyway, it doesn't have anything to do with what I'm saying. I just thought I give them a plug because they sent me this this free version of the wireless mouse, so it's pretty cool. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you a quick rundown of what we have so far. I have like saved the different stages, so in case you weren't here a couple of weeks ago, you will be able to sort of like follow along, if anything, or at least know where I came from and what we're trying to do in this session. Other than that, let's see what is. Oh, the material that I'm using is one of my personal customized materials called the Gold Rose. It might be on the ZBrush Guides website in the resources materials section. I can't remember, but it's fairly simple. I just have like, I mean, I'll show you what it is in case you want to replicate it. No, actually, I mean I can show you, but that one is I thought it was one of the simple ones. It has a few more things. So it has like 4 different channels that make up the material. So I have this really simple base that is green. Then I have this other material that has some cavity detection with different colors. So this is the one that is giving me that strong contrast. Then I have this one that sort of colorize everything a little bit. And I think this one, the S3, is set to color. This is the reason why it's colorizing that. Kind of like the same blending modes in Photoshop. And then the 4th one is the one that is giving me that sort of gold rose with additional cavity detection. Anyway, I thought it was gonna be the easy one, but I'm pretty sure it's in there. If not, I'm happy to share this one as well with you guys. But I'm gonna go back to basics. And by the way, the other thing is that this season of high fever is killing me. So it's all combined into a single one today. All right, so I'm gonna start with just as a quick recap. I'm gonna go into solo mode. That's not the one. Oh, okay, we're going in a inverted mode. All right. So this is what we blocked out from the ZBrush, the Z-sphere armature. So bunch of spheres. Then we use the Z-sketch to add these muscles and tendons on top of it. So the combination of this and this together. So one is the adaptive skin. That's what I covered in the previous session. The other one is the sketch, or the unified skin, or like the resulting of the Z-sketch is called the unified skin. So we have unified skin and adaptive skin. Now these are workable meshes. I put them together into a single one, and I unified the scale. So that's why it looks like this. So this is the resulting part of that initial step that we did. Then we use the move brush and the move topological for the most part, really, to create this. So it's just like pretty much the same sort of resolution. You see, it is still stretched. I haven't redynamized or anything, but it's mainly just working on the proportions and, you know, pulling things together. Because I think one of the issues and one of the problems that I've seen when using this technique, when you have a Z-sphere armature where you try to give them the initial volumes, and then you add the Z-sketch on top, it tends to get very fat, very blobby, because you're not taking into account the subtracting portion of the sculpting process, which is usually very important. Like considering the negative spaces, the concave forms is also very important. So when you use this technique of the Z-sketch, or adding the Z-sketch, is just adding volume, and it could become a bit blobby. So that's the reason why this part is important, to sort of like start removing some pieces and adjusting the volumes. Anyway, after this, I think we redynamized, increased the resolution, and we started sketching things like so. So this is pretty much what we, no, actually one more, sorry. So this is already dynamesh. We started defining a suggestion of the anatomy a little bit more, and some of the muscles and potential, rib cage and all of that. And then at the very end of last session, a couple of weeks ago, we ended up with this guy, which is still dynamesh. So, pretty, I think it's an alright resolution. It's less than 1 million polygons, so it's pretty good for a full body, creature. But we started defining these extra, I would say, secondary forms before we get into the next stage. So that's what we have so far. So the idea today would be to maybe work on the face. I think we might need to add something to the face, make it a bit more interesting. And I don't know, I was thinking maybe adding some kind of like flares around here. I don't know, like extra fins or extra details. So I'm gonna try to do that with like new techniques and approaching it in different ways, so that I give you guys more tools. That's the idea usually. All right, so let me just see the chat. Usually the problem that I have is with the reading now, with the eye. It's so beginner questions, but it will be grateful you can. Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to rotate my character hand, but the whole model is rotating. I just want to rotate the specific hands. Okay, so if I get this correctly, what you want to just do is pose your character, or work on that, and you have the hand attached to the rest of the body in a single subtool. From what you wrote, that's kind of like what I can see. The easiest thing to rotate a part of a model without moving other parts is to essentially mask an object. So let's say if I take this guy here, I just select my holding control. Sorry, I'm not sure like how beginner you are, but I'm gonna cover all the basics. So if you hold control, you'll see that my brush changes, and that allows you to change the different masking brushes. So I can take this mask lasso. That's one of my favorites. That's why I have it right here in my UI. And now if I hold control, that's the selected brush. I can just basically do this, assuming that this is kind of like what you're trying to do. Let's assume that this is my the hand of my character, or your character. And then what you can do is invert that mask, bring in the gizmo, and click on this icon here. This location icon will center that gizmo to the volume of the unmasked areas. So I'm going to bring in my Epic pen as well, just to cover some of this. Shaquille, where can you find the material that you just show? So the gold rose, I think it is in the ZBrush guides. I can't remember. Sometimes I just create stuff and put it in my library, but I don't know 100% sure if it is on the ZBrush guides website. You can go and try that out. If it is not there, I'm happy to share after or upload it afterwards. All right. So this location item, once you have unmasked something or unmasked something, it will center that that gizmo to the total volume of whatever is unmasked. So in this case, this whole thing, you know, from here to here, all of that is unmasked. So it will look at the entire volume and it's going to create kind of like a bounding box, like in imaginary or temporary create this sort of box, and it's going to put that pivot right in the center of that box, right, or that volume. So what you need to do is, obviously, if you go ahead and rotate it right now, it's going to rotate from this point or a scale or whatever, right? So what you need to do is hold the Alt key or click on this location lock icon. So that is to unlock the pivot. So holding Alt is just the easiest way of doing it, but you can just literally click on this thing and then move it around. So what I'm doing is just position the pivot point so I can rotate it from, let's say, the wrist of the character or the elbow in this case, right? And then I can lock it back in and I can just move it from here, right? Also, you know, in this case, I have a lot of resolution. So it's ideal to pose or rotate things in the lowest resolution. So, you know, that might be something to consider. But if you have something like this that has a lot of resolution, what you can do is blur this mask. So I'm going to give you a couple of things to do. And this kind of like goes for anyone. It's not necessarily a beginner's tip or anything, but something that I found really useful. You can go ahead and click on blur the mask. So if you click on this one, you see that the mask blurs. You can also hold the control key and click directly on the mask. And I can do that multiple times to keep blurring that mask. I'm going to undo that. I can also invert the mask and then do the same thing here. So in other words, you can blur the mask from this angle, invert the mask, blur this mask in here. So you see how it starts like to create a nice gradient. But the most powerful kind of like, I would say, diffusing tool of the masking tools or diffusing feature is this dilute mask. So the dilute mask is gonna do the same thing, but it's gonna be stronger. So you can click on that and you see it is diluting that mask. I'm gonna blur it even more. So it becomes like a nice gradient, right? So it's a combination of diluting the mask that is going to, you know, give you an extended sort of, the range of the gradient between what is masked and what is not is going to be greater. And then you can use blur to just clear things up a little bit. And now if you go ahead and move it, let's say if I put it here, you see it's a lot nicer, like the deformation, right? And you, of course, you can go back and tweak it, but generally speaking, that's the process. All right. So hopefully that answers the question. Let's go ahead and start with some ideas for the face and refining things a little bit. Cool. Thanks, Anna. If you like this UI, I have it in my YouTube channel. So there's a tutorial that I've created, or in the ZBrush guides as well, about customizing the UI. And you can download exactly what I have here, minus some of the custom macros that I've created. And there is an option for left-handed people. So I'm right-handed. That's why I have all my stuff here on the right-hand side. But if you are left-handed, it's kind of like the same thing, but on the other side. All right. So let's go ahead and start playing around with some ideas. I think I'm going to make him have like some bulging eyes or maybe something, I don't know. Not sure yet of what we can do. But I'm going to click on this brush and I'm going to go for the IMM primitives. And these just have like a bunch of primitive objects. I'm going to click on the sphere and I have the symmetry enabled. I'm going to do something like this. Maybe if I push the depth, I'll be integrated a little bit more. Okay, the problem with this one is that it already looks pretty silly. So I don't think, I think we need to go for something more subtle. Like that. Maybe. it's kind of like hard to make a decision on this guy. All right, so what I'll do is I'm just gonna push this back. By the way, every time that you use any of these insert brushes, you see that everything gets automatically masked. I'm gonna use a custom menu, but you have it in your subtool palette, which is this split on mask points. For you would be under the split section and split on mask points. So that way you have now, let's get out of solo mode. You have now the eyes on its own and then the rest in here. So now let's go back to the move brush, and I'm gonna use the AccuCurve that gives you that sort of pointy shape. By the way, the AccuCurve is under the brush palette. If you go to depth here, no, sorry, not depth, curve, this one right here. So this is what I have in my custom UI. So, and that's giving you that sort of pointy shape. So what I like about this is that it creates these annoying points. So some people might find it annoying. I think for me, it's a great visual anchor point, so that I know that these are the type of things that I need to refine. But it gives me like a good starting point, if that makes sense. I'll try to explain it a little bit better in a second. But you see, I'm just holding the Alt key to pull and push the geometry around. All right, so now that I have this, let me just show you what I mean about this tool with the AccuCurve. So when I use the move brush or the move topological with AccuCurve, it just creates these tiny spikes. Obviously, this is going to be depending on the resolution that you have, but it creates this. So for some people, this might be like, okay, this is a sculpting in a dirty way, like it's not creating something smooth and nice. But for me, since I'm still in this blocking stage, figuring things out, it kind of like gives me a point of reference, like a visual anchor point that I can use to fill in the gaps. So a more practical example would be, let's say from this angle. It's not very obvious, but I'll try to explain it. So I have something that looks like this, right? And I know that I could create something a bit nicer with just sculpting using the clay brush, but it kind of like feels better if I do it with the move brush. I'm just used to it, and I think it provides clarity as the way that you approach the sculpting process. So my next step would be with the clay brush or something similar. Start building this up, especially in between the peaks, so that it creates a nice, a nice form. That's the reason why I use the AccuCurve, or one of the reasons really. So I can just go back to the clean builder brush and start doing this. You see, very subtle. And of course the smooth brush as well. I'm gonna reduce the intensity of the smooth brush as well. So now that I have those peaks, or yeah, now that I have the volume that I created, I can just easily adjust it with the clay brushes. And probably one of the reasons why I like it this way is because, with the sculpting brushes like the clay builder brush, it is very easy to get lost in the design process. I think it's nice, but let's say if I want to do something here for the head, I can start doing this. And it's like, oh, this is cool, and then you start doing this, and it very easily you can sort of like lose track of what you're actually trying to do. So blocking it out a little bit with the move brush, I think it really helps, at least to just keep you within the original idea that you're having. The clay brushes are really nice. I just think that it will potentially pull you away from the original idea. All right, so that's not too bad. We need to work on something for the head. I'm gonna make this a little bit more intense and also work on the. Let's go ahead and mark out the what could be the mouth of the character, and then we can just work on the rest up. Question: how do you UV for repeated objects like rope and accessories? Do you pre-UV or after everything is done? That's a very specific question. I think in my experience, it's better to just, if you're designing things, it's better to just go with the flow and design things and then worry about this after. If you already know what you're going for, maybe it is easier to pre-do it. A simple thing to do would be to basically take a cylinder, right, or a tube, and then create the UVs, and then you can go ahead and use the something like noise. I don't know if that answers the question. I mean, it is very different from what I'm trying to do, but if we have time later on, I can show you a brief idea of how to do it. Is this a model for project or fun? For both. It's a project for fun. Alrighty, so I'm going to show you another cool way of blocking things out that I like to use. So I'm going to use the curve tool or the curve brush. So this is the one that allows you, let me double check I am in the right place. Yeah, so I have the body. So this one allows you to create, obviously, these things. Oh, that's an interesting. Sometimes when I'm like just playing around and testing brushes, I come up with cool things that I think might work. I don't know if this one might work, but you know, maybe something like this. That'll be nice. Anyway, so this one, this brush is the one that allows you to create this type of stuff. But by default, this brush, when you draw it out, let's say I'm gonna do something like this, and you look at it from the from the side, you'll see it is right in a plane, or like it's drawn over a single plane. It doesn't have any. It doesn't consider the topology that you have or the volume that you have. That is because by default, wherever you click, that's where the thing is going to start. So if I click around the eye and I do this, it's still going to be over a single plane. But if I rotate, you see it starts from the eye. If I just click somewhere here at the back, roughly, it's just going to start there, and so on and so forth. So the way that I like to use this is to change the way that ZBrush reads that curve. And it's a very simple thing to do. You can go to the picker here, this palette, and you can switch from 1C to continuous C. So 1C just means that ZBrush is going to evaluate the surface only once. That's why it's called 1C. One time it's going to evaluate it, and that one time is as soon as you click, that's it. That's your plane, or that's the depth, right? Or the Z. If you click on continuous C, what ZBrush is going to do is, as you draw the curve, is going to continuously evaluate where the surface is, and that's why you can sort of like attach it to the surface. So it's a very basic thing, but very powerful. And this works for any curve brush, so it doesn't have to be, any curve brush. It doesn't have to be the tubes. So that's one of the things. All right, so I'm gonna undo that. Another thing that you can use or to tweak about this brush is the depth. So this one right here that I have on my UI, which for you would be, let me just bring this, yeah. So in the curve, I'm gonna clean this up. So in the brush palette, you can go to depth, and this is the one that I have here. You can use this slider, and it's going to move that up and down, or just click on the icon and move it up and down. So I have both. I have the, for more precise things, when I'm modifying my custom brushes, I use this one, but for things like this that I'm showing you, you can just use this icon. So now that I show you where it is, what I'll do is I'm gonna push this down, and this middle line right here, that middle line is the surface of the model. So basically, this is the surface. This is the outside space, and let's say this area is the inside of the model, right? For like, if you look at the icon. So by pushing this down, right, what I'm doing is I'm gonna take the volume of that tube and I'm gonna embed it a little bit more. So if I do this now, you'll see that if I look at it from a different angle, maybe from here, you'll see that it is more embedded. So this is the tube, let's say, or the curve, right? And then here is the surface, and here's the surface. Hopefully that makes sense. So you can do the same thing, pushing it up or down. That's why I have it in my UI, because it's a very easy way to work around. All right, so I just undo that. So I'm gonna use this to block out an idea of additional shapes for the head, and and I would say there's still blockings of the primary shapes, but at this point we have the main block out of the primary shape. So I would say that I would use this tool for secondary shapes that are not going to change the silhouette that much, I hope. Oh, thank you so much. Glad that you like it. We watched your tutorials before Lion's piece. Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by that. All right. So I'm gonna create kind of like lips. That will be interesting. I wanna make sure it doesn't have like I don't want a happy face. So this is kind of like a cool way of blocking things out as well. So I'm just drawing a curve, and then if I don't like it, I just undo it. So what I'm looking for really here is a nice balance. All right, so that's not too bad. What I'll do is I'm gonna do what I did with the eyes. So let's go to unmask, split unmask point. So now these shapes are, actually, I'm gonna show you something else. Ignore what I just did. Let me mesh it together. I wanna show you another cool technique. Merge down. Partially hidden. Hang on. All right. So back to what I had. So I just cleared the mask, right? So we have different polygroups, or we can create different polygroups. So I'm gonna continue with the, let's say, this additional blocking stage using the curve tubes. So maybe add something for the bottom lip or top lip. Yeah, I think this one will make a bit more sense. By the way, you can smooth things out with the curve. So if I do something like this, let me do it here so you can see a bit better. So if I do something like this and I don't like this, I don't have to redo it and make it like a straight line again. You can very easily hover over the curve, and you see that the cursor changes from this red cursor to this green. So if you click on the curve now, just so you can edit it, you can hold the shift key, and that way you can smooth it out. So that's pretty cool. So I'm just smoothing what I did. So let me undo all of that. All right, so that's what I kind of like did in there. All right, and then I'm gonna change my brush size, make something a bit bigger, something like that. And I wanna also create a little bit of tapering, so that this is kind of like adding chunks of clay. So if I add something here for the forehead, I wanted the new piece to sort of transition into what I already have a little bit better, right? So imagine if you work with normal clay or like traditional clay, you have like a little warm tube of clay. You put it out, you put it on top of the piece, and then you use your thumbs to smudge it in and just blend it a little bit. So that's what I want to achieve with this. So to do this, what I can do is go to the stroke palette, right? So there we go. So the stroke palette is ultimately the one that dictates what this is, right? This is ultimately a stroke. So if I change this and click on curve mode, it's going to switch the curve mode to be just an insert brush, right? Also, you can lock in the start, bend end, or bend start. So that means I can do this. If I lock the end and the start, and switch this bend end and bend start, basically these 4 switches is telling ZBrush that I want to lock this start, lock the end, but I'm gonna allow the starting point and the end point to bend around. So you can just do this, and you see the end points are not moving. So again, this is how you can tweak all of that. So let's go back to what we had. Actually, let's just leave it as it is. I think it's a good feature or setting. And then I'm gonna go to the curve modifiers. And in the curve modifiers, you have intensity by default, but I want to enable size. So enabling size is telling ZBrush to look at this curve follow. So, or follow, click on that. So now, because I enable size, this is the only switch that matters really from what I'm showing you, apart from what I did before. It doesn't, sorry, just so that I don't confuse you. These things, you don't have to do them. This is just so that the curve behaves differently. So I'm gonna leave them off. So the only thing you need to change really is these curve modifiers enable size. So when you do that, ZBrush is going to look at this point and say, okay, we want to start small and go big, right? So I think I've covered this before, but essentially anything on the right-hand side of things here in ZBrush, when you have a palette with a curve like this refers to the root, or like the start point, and anything on the right hand side refer to the tip or end point. So this just simply means that we're gonna start, if we draw this curve again, it's gonna start very, very tiny, and as it goes, or as you draw it, it's going to go to a larger, size. So in theory, that's the theory. In practice, if you click, and this is my starting point, click and drag, you'll see that I'm starting really, really small, just like this point, and then go to a larger point, right? So that's kind of cool. That's kind of like what I'm after, but I want to control it a little bit more. I want something slightly different. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to edit this curve. So I'm going to push this down and this up a little bit, right? So this basically gives me a flat size, but it's going to be smaller than what I have, right? And instead, I'm going to take the top, or like the center, and click to add a new point, and just push it up, right? So now in theory, we're going to start a little bit, not too small, go up like halfway through the curve, and then go down again. So if I click on this, you now have something that is, a bit nicer. And you can also, hover over these points. You see there's like a yellow outline. When you hover over, you can click on that outline and sharpen that point, or unsharpen it, make it a bit more blobby. So I'm gonna do that for the center one, and the beginning one, I'm gonna make it a bit sharper, like so. So, tiny thing. So another cool thing is that you can tweak this curve, and you see I already have this curve attached to the head. I can click on it to update it. You see it's very tiny. So let's undo that. All right. So I think we have something cool now that we can work with. So this is a great way of, by the way, you can control the size of the thickness of this curve with the brush size. So if I reduce my brush size, it's gonna have the same effect, but it's gonna be tiny. If I increase my brush size, same effect, but it's gonna be larger. So I'm gonna use this to kind of like add some pieces here around the eyes. I'm not sure if that's the best way of going about it. So it's kind of like blocking out things like, I use this technique for clothing, for example. So you can just block out the folds and things like that, and then just merge everything together, like I'm going to show you in a bit. And that works really nice. Okay, I'm going to add a bit more to the to the forehead of this guy. And maybe something just to indicate some kind of like muscle. Yeah. This is another really cool technique for, working with muscles. All right. So not too bad. Again, nothing too crazy. Right? And I'm going to clear the mask. So now I have a bunch of pieces, and I can just go ahead and redynamize right now and start sculpting, right? So right now I have a bunch of different polygroups. If I go ahead and click on redynamize, holding Control, click and drag, because I already have dynamize, everything is going to blend together, and I can just sort of smooth things out and start refining this. However, if I go back, the reason I did it this way, the reason I like this workflow, is because when you create anything with a curve brush, is going to automatically add these polygroups, or is going to create new polygroups. And also it is a separate mesh, right? So I have the best of both worlds, like individual or independent meshes, even though it is within the same subtool, and polygroups. So I can hold Control and Shift and isolate this bead by itself, or, because I have their different objects, I can use something like the move topological, and it will respect the continuity of that topology. So I'm not gonna edit everything at once. So what I like to do at this point is, now that I know that, that I have polygroups and all of that, is use this move topological with the same AccuCurve to adjust the kind of like the transition before I do the sculpting. So this is another thing that I go into a lot more depth, and we practice in the course. By the way, for those of you who just joined us, the Extra Mile course, this character here above me, is open for enrollment today, actually. So it's super exciting. So I'm just kind of like giving you a glimpse, as of different things that we go into a bit more depth. And we tend to talk more about design principles and things as we go ahead and define the character. But yeah, generally speaking, this is, you could say that this is a very similar process. All right, so you see, for example, here, this lip is, just a tube. So I want to blend this a bit better. I'm going to push it like so. So that is not as, pronounced. Same thing here. I'm going to push this a bit back, and I'm going to blend this into the body a bit more. Oh, I forgot. I have symmetry enabled, so I have double these tubes in here. So if you don't want to have it, you can turn off symmetry and then just mirror and well. But it doesn't matter. We're gonna dynamesh everything, so it's no point of worrying about that. I'm just concentrating on that sort of transition. Make sure that it is doing what I want them to do. So this one's again a bit blobby. So I'm gonna push things, kind of like spread this out. Sometimes, if you're having trouble like selecting just because this is a low mesh, when you try to move it, you're actually trying to move like individual points or trying to grab these points, and it might just like, grab the one underneath. So one thing you can do, just because you have polygroups, is isolate this, hold control and mask it, bring back everything, and that way it's a little bit easier so that you don't affect the one underneath. Okay, I think we're getting there. Hopefully this gives you an idea of the cool technique. And maybe here as well. All right. So now that I have masked this out, another cool technique, or actually, let's clear the mask. Another cool technique you can use is not just the move topological, it also works with other brushes. So if you select the inflate, for example, I want to give this lip, for example, a bit more meat, right? More volume. So I can go ahead and do that, but it's going to obviously do it to everything. So if I want to, add a little bit of volume here, I can just go ahead and do that. And it's kind of like integrating things, inflating everything together a little bit. However, again, because we have the polygroups and each one of these blobs and pieces of geometry that we're adding are separate, or they're individual pieces, we can actually use another really cool tool that works with most brushes, if not all of them, which is the equivalent of, it's basically what the move topological uses. So it is in the auto masking section. So if you go to the brush palette, you can go to the auto mask or auto masking section here, and just pay attention to these topological, right? So if I switch, just look at this topological. That's the only thing. I believe that's the one that the move topological is using. Can't remember. So if I go ahead and select the move topological, you see that it gets automatically selected. So all this is doing is telling ZBrush to look at the continuity of the topology. So whether the object has the continuity of the points are closer or separate, or they're completely separate objects. So just to give you an idea, imagine if you have, let's say you have like an arm, like so, like this is the arm and this is the torso on the side, torso, an arm, and then you have all the points of the topology here, regardless of what it is. It could be a nice clean topology, or it could be dynamesh, it doesn't matter. This thing right here and the range and the smooth and all of that is going to look at how close the polygons are. So if you use the move topological and click here, you can just move this in any direction that you want, and it's going to kind of like have a range like this. So it's not gonna affect any of the other polygons that are really close. So you can move the arm without affecting the torso of the character. But if you get closer here to, let's say, a point here, it might work, but because the range is still the same, it's going to also grab some of these points. And this is what I mean about the continuity of the topology. So it's continuing, ZBrush looks at the continuity of these points and these loops, and that's how like it decides what to move and what not to move. The point of all this is that when you have different objects like I have here, you know, each one of these objects, they are not attached to the underlying mesh, right? They're individual. So it doesn't matter what, you know, as long as you have the topological switch enabled, doesn't matter what you do, as long as you click on one of these pieces, it's only going to affect that piece regardless of how hard you press or how large your brush is, because there is no connection in that topology. So all of this is just to say that if you go ahead and switch to the inflate brush, you can click on topological and you can use the inflate or the effect of this brush in just the one that you click first. So going back to the idea of adding more volume to the bottom lip, if I click first on this guy, the yellow one, in fact, let me just give it a different polygroup so you can see, I can just click and then you see I'm using the inflate very, very close to the other lip, but I'm only affecting one. So I'm gonna use this to add a bit of volume here. Let's turn off the polyframe, right? And the same thing in here. I'm just gonna add volume to the top bit without affecting this, maybe adding a bit more like so. Same thing, I'm gonna add just volume to this one. So you see, it's just, I don't know, for me, this is like a very, it's a no-brainer. It's a very easy way to do things. And it's just the way that you set things up, right? So for example, here, instead of pulling or pushing this corner or this little end of the mesh in, I can just add a little bit of volume here or around it to sort of transition that a bit better. I don't know, hopefully that makes sense. Same thing here. All right, so we get in there with slightly weird look of this guy, but obviously this is still very sketchy or blocky. We just need to focus on the transitions. All right, so what I'll do now, let's go back to the normal effect of the inflate, but this is a really cool tip that you can use for most brushes. Even the standard brush, anything that you want, you can just add the topological and it would work like that. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the Dynamesh to redynamesh everything. So now everything is combined, perfect. And then I'm gonna use, I wanna use my Geo brush and the smooth brush just to smooth things out. So obviously, once you smooth this, you'll see the effect a bit better. All right, not too bad. And then I can use this Geo brush to sort of cut through certain areas again, just redefine the main ones that I want to keep. So one of the ones that I want to keep is this mouth, right? I'm also just thinking that maybe I can connect this a little bit more, so that it feels like a single piece, and then do a more like a cleaner line here. I think that looks a bit more interesting. All right, so that is kind of like the first pass. Then I will go with something like the clay brush or the clean builder brush and refine those volumes to make sure that it has the, let's say, the smoothness and the right form and volume. So I'm just adding volume here as well as smoothing these areas. So you see how that, block out is blending nicely, or started to generate the volume that I wanted for this area. And like I said, this is just one way of doing it. You could just very easily use the move brush and then use the clay brush if you feel comfortable with this technique to, just do what I'm doing right now, but from the beginning. It's just that blocking things out, it allows you to play around with the design, I think, a bit more. As in, it gives you a more control and a more structured approach to create the things that, probably that you want to create. I'll have a look at the chat in just a second, guys, so feel free to put any questions that you have. happy to answer them. If you have questions about the extra mile, the course, also happy to answer them here. All right. So I think I just need to blend this a bit more. I don't want to have such a big gap in here. Simplify those shapes. I think this is going to be, yeah, I think this area is going to be an interesting breakout from the north. You see, it sort of like made the whole thing a little bit more, a bit wider. I think that's cool. So I'm gonna make sure that this bottom area, like the jaw, it feels like a, you know, it has a bit more structure instead of just being like a thick lip. So I'm gonna measure it a little bit with the muscles that could potentially pull the jaw down. And this is where the process of kind of like grounding the design, I would say. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, this is where I can think a little bit more about the functionality of certain things or certain volumes, and just try to make sure that, you know, this, even though it is a fantasy creature or something that doesn't exist, that is plausible, you know, that it could exist, or at least that if I were to show it to an audience, a human audience, they will react well, as in like they would understand, like, yeah, this makes sense. I mean, it's a weird thing, but I could believe that in a weird world, it would work, just because it has reference to things that humans are used to seeing. You know, like it has, you know, the arm has like the section that a human arm might have, even though it could have, you know, 8 arms, right? And it doesn't have to be human. You know, it could be tentacles, right? So because we know what a octopus or a squid looks like, or roughly, if you add references, or you use references of those creatures, those animals, mollusks, whatever they are, into your, you know, to your project, that creates that level of, I would say, believability. I don't know how to pronounce that. Make it believable or plausible. So that's really what I'm trying to do here. All right, so a little bit of a sculpting there, like just, you know, the usual sculpting that I would do. Not much of a technique. This is where things get repetitive and a little bit annoying to watch. So I'm gonna leave it here. I will spend a lot more time refining these shapes, but just to give you an idea, this is what I would spend a lot of my time, you know, blending these, and it is a very relaxing thing for me. I can just put a music in the background and just do this for a long time. Which is also, you know, a bit of a double-edged sword, because I can just not waste time, but I could be in a sedentary position for too long, and that place, you know, I'll have to pay a toll after. My back would hurt, and, you know. So if you do this, it's a good idea to put a reminder to get up and stretch and move a little bit. Anyway, so you'll see that now it looks very different from what we had, which is just a bunch of blobs of clay. But as I work on the transition, like, you have the bases, you have the things in there, and it's just more about how you refine that integration of those shapes. So I think that kind of works for this guy. And of course, we can just add a bit more definition, maybe here, this area. I'm gonna use the ZBrush. And also notice that I haven't changed the resolution really, so I'm still working with a very small amount of polygons. I'm gonna try to resolve the eyelids for this creature, or this area, a little bit more. All right, I know that I said I'm gonna look at the chat, but I get sucked into this into this workflow, and then I just stay there for a while. All right, let me have a look at the chat, and we'll continue with the other sections. Hey Jao, thank you. Glad you liked it. Can you tell a bit about your job, where you work, like a game studio or self-employed, plus how's your days? So Masahir is asking. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but it's asking about like what I do really. So to answer that question is a little bit of everything. I'm self-employed, so I run the ZBrush guides and more specifically the 3D Concept Artist website, which is like the online academy that by the way it got certified this year, so I'm super proud of that. And that's where this guy here is living. So that's the extra mile. In fact, let me just show you. Where do I have it? Yeah, there we go. So the extra mile. This is the character that the one on that side, or at the top. Anyway, that's the extra mile course. That's where I teach, all my workflows, the entire thing, and obviously a big part of the course is about ZBrush. That's kind of like my bread and butter. So that's one side of the coin in terms of what my daily job or daily work looks like. I spend time either preparing things, updating things, creating things for the students, planning things, all of that, anything related to the academy. The other side of that coin of my job is I work as a freelancer. I work as a 3D concept and character artist for different studios and different projects. So I have ongoing studios that I work with on very specific projects, and other clients that are more like ad hoc jobs, like for 2 or 3 weeks, or sometimes a bit more than that, smaller jobs. But yeah, for the most part, it's that sort of balance between teaching and running the academy, and then doing jobs in the game and video games and film industry, visual effects, things like that with studios. That's obviously something that I really like, and it keeps me relevant, just to make sure that I'm on top of what's happening, what's the new technologies, or how studios are working, and then I can sort of infuse that into the academy. So hopefully that answers the question. Is this a reference, or is it totally from your mind? Jeremy, so this is, I just made it up. I do have references. I don't have them open today, but I had reference the previous time when I blocked it in of beluga whales. So you see that the shape of the, what could be like the knees of this creature, and the general shape of the head is very beluga whale-ish. So I do have like references of how that works, but not necessarily of a creature. So yeah, this is made up. What is that? Curve brush? So I think, that's a comment from a while back. So the brush that I use is the curve tool brush, and I just edit that a little bit. You can just rewind a bit and see how I did that. I cannot read this. Capital Stellar. Cool. Not sure what that comment is. Sorry. Do you have any tips on tricks masking wrinkles and clothes? Yeah. I mean, ZBrush has like lots of different things to create brushes and to create folds and clothing. Just to give you a reference of how versatile that could be, I have a set of custom brushes that are just for what I use as my tools for cloth and drapery. So it's called the cloth and drapery pack. That is in the ZBrushGuides.store. So you can just go and grab it if you wanted to. So all of these brushes, they have like a specific purpose for clothing. Some of them are just patterns. Some of them are to create folds. So for instance, let's say if I use this compression fold, I think this one would be a good one. Maybe this one. So it's just a custom brush, but I could use it. Let's say if this guy is wearing some clothing, I can very quickly go ahead and create these sort of folds, or like compression folds. And it has, I mean, it's not the usual brush, so it's not like clicking and dragging something. It just looks at the geometry underneath, and it just adds a bit of volume, but it also gives you the directionality so that you can control, you know, where the tension points are. So if this was like a shared, you know, there will be some tension points in here. You know, if I turn off symmetry, there will be some compression folds. I mean, this is just for compression, but you see how easy that is. So that's one thing. There's another couple of really cool ones in here that just to give you an idea. So which are the curves? This one right here. So this one, the main soft brush, I guess I could use it as well in here, but let's say if this is I don't know, like a skirt or something, I can just draw a curve like this, you see, and then I can just go ahead and click and drag to add the volume. So the curve allows you to set the direction of that fold, and then you can click and drag just to add that volume, right? So I can do this like so, and that creates obviously a more straight line, and obviously you can, you know, tweak it after. You can also hold the Alt key when you do it. So I draw the curve first, and then you hold the Alt key and you push it in, right? Just to add or to subtract volume, and then do the same thing here to add more. So it's still a bit of a manual process to do this, but it gives you more control. Anyway, so this is just a set of brushes that I have for this particular purpose, and there are a bunch of them. Let me go back in here. So that's one way of doing it. The other cool thing you can do is using dynamics, for instance. So if I want to do, I'm going to show you. Let's see. Because this one has too many polygons. I'm going to duplicate it just to show you. Duplicate. And I'm going to reduce the Dynamesh resolution to 80,000. 80,000 is plenty. So you could go up to, you know, higher numbers, but in order to maintain a good balance between performance and the effect that you want, below 250,000 is probably the best. So if you go to Dynamics, so in the Dynamics palette, you can just run simulation. This is just going to drop the model to the ground. So I'm not going to do that. But you can also define the properties of the dynamics and use brushes. So for example, if you select something like this cloth notch, so all of these brushes here work with dynamics. Any brush can work with dynamic, really. So you can use the move brush and then simply enable dynamics, but these ones already have that. So if you click on the notch brush, this is a really good one. It's going to look at all of these settings and it's going to react to it. So if I, with symmetry, if I do this, you see I'm just adding wrinkles straight away. So I can just do that as if this was kind of like a suit, right? So I'll compress this like so, and now I have these compression folds. So you see, that's one way of doing it. Of course, that that also needs, you need to make sure that you know the tension points so that it creates a believable effect, I guess. But again, anyway, so you see that if I do this like so with this, it's looking at these settings. But if it's maybe a little bit too much and you're doing something a bit thicker, like leather or, you know, any other type of, sorry, I just realized that I have the camera a little bit off as I'm explaining things. Sorry, let me just set it up. Yeah, much better. Sorry. So yeah, if you want to change the, let's say, the structure or like the properties of the material that you want to create the folds for, is different to make folds for linen than it is to make it for a leather or a denim, things like that. So you can change the firmness. That's one way of doing it. So if I put the firmness to 6, it's gonna make a very firm material, like a very thick leather. So again, I can do this, but it's gonna be very hard to create tiny folds, right? So maybe that's a little bit too much. I'm gonna go to 5. Still a little bit too intense, but you see they're like larger folds, right? So you can create like cool things, not just clothing. You can also create a bit weird, you know, creatures. you know, with less control, but that's it. So if you set it to 1, it's going to be tiny, tiny wrinkles, right? So this is more like a linen maybe, or like a cotton type of thing. So yeah, you can control that with these brushes, and it's pretty cool. You can also use the simulation. So let's say if you mask something like this, blur it, right? So you can simulate just this section. So I can simulate that. And you see that the gravity is a bit too strong. So I can turn off gravity and maybe go inflate. So it's going to use the dynamics of the clothing simulation, but it's going to inflate things. So I can run the simulation like so. You'll see it just like tightens that up. Or I can do the opposite. I can deflate it and just make something, you know, like a mushroom stem type of thing. So all of this is really cool. I can also do it in the entire model. Can run this and just make something that looks really like a shrink wrap type of thing, which is not bad. I think it's cool. And then if you do inflate, you can also combine this with, let's say, expand. So if I click on, all right, I'm going to click on inflate first just to show you that it's just going to tidy everything up, like if you're inflating the character, like a balloon, which is cool. If I click on inflate as well as expand, it's going to, instead of reaching a point of inflation, it's going to continue to expand it as it inflates. So you see, this would be like the normal effect of just inflating, but because I have the expand, if I just let it, if I continue to do that, you see it just continue to expand even more. So it becomes this, you know, this is actually not too bad for a beluga whale. So I can use this to fatten this character up quite a bit. Actually, it's not bad. I like it. But let's say like the wrinkles are too small, right? So you can just change the firmness to 3, run the same simulation, and now the wrinkles are going to be a bit more meaty. It's not going to be as small. All right, so you have your fat beluga character as an option. I'm going to leave it there just because this, you know, this is one of the features that it's really fun to play with, but I can waste a lot of time. So I'm gonna go back to this guy, and if anything, I can just combine them two together. But yeah, let's continue with this. All right. So by the way, let me just double check. Janelson. Casey, I recently signed up to your UCG courses. Awesome. I'm about to start module 2. Oh, awesome. I'm glad that you like the way that I teach the UI stuff. Awesome. Very nice. Cool. Any advice to a new starter? Just concentrate on the simple things first. Just like get a grasp on the, on the very simple things. Like the standard brush, understanding volumes, a little bit of the theory really, and concentrate on basic stuff, just trying to do something basic before you move forward. If you're like a total beginner, obviously I have the UCG course, which is the ultimate ZBrush guide course, just to teach you everything from the beginning, from the start. However, there is something that is called the 7th step to getting started with ZBrush. Let's see if I can give you the address. It's not working for some reason. Let me just double check. All right, so here is my website. I'm gonna hide this guy for a second. So this is the academy, the online academy. This ribbon here will take you to the extra mile, just in case. This one as well. So this is the character that I've been talking about. So this is the big program, but this is a bit more advanced. So if you're a beginner, what I would recommend is start with, if you're a beginner and you're committed that, okay, this is what I'm going to learn. I already had a taste of what ZBrush is, I'm gonna invest in upscaling. You can go straight to the courses and let's say get the ultimate ZBrush guide course, this one right here. So the UCG this one. So I walk you through everything from absolute, from the very beginning of ZBrush, starting on like the SIGGRAPH paper, what the difference is between a pixel and a pixel, things like that. So very basic, all the way to creating this mushroom character from scratch. So it's a very comprehensive, larger course. However, if you just want to figure out things and see if you're into it, really, you can go ahead and click on Start here. That's the first thing that you will see when you join or when you start exploring this the Academy. It basically takes you through what concept or 3D concept art is, and a bunch of free resources that you can use. So this one is like an interesting one. You can just go ahead and download it. Sign up for this. Is like a 3-day creature workshop, things like that. So there's a lot of like resources that you can use here. There is also in the ZBrush guides. So that's the Academy, but in the ZBrush guides, which is another website that I have, it's completely dedicated to ZBrush, or mostly dedicated to ZBrush, or workflows that somehow use ZBrush. So if you go here, you can also go to the Start here. So I have like the same sort of ideas, and it will ask you basic stuff like you're new to these ZBrush guides or 3D or ZBrush or whatever, and it will walk you through what this is. So there is a section, this one here. So the 7 steps to getting started with ZBrush. So if you click on this one, if you click on this one in the actual name, it will take you to a different section where you can sign up. And again, it's free. You just sign up, and I will send you the videos and everything to directly to your email. But what's cool about this one, again, it's free, is that basically, I don't know if you can see it here in the background. It is using absolutely the most basic stuff to understand ZBrush. So I run you through, like, just take a very simple object like an orange. That's what I actually use in this example. Take an orange, like a real orange, something that you can hold in your hand and see and study, and then try to replicate that in ZBrush. And you'll see, an orange or an apple, that's just taking a sphere and maybe like deform it a little bit. But it's not. When you start looking at the stuff that an orange has, there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of bumps. It has like pores similar to the skin. It has like the point where it just where it grows from. It has a lot of imperfections. So if you want to replicate something that apparently is simple, like an orange, even though the shape is like a sphere, there's a lot more to it. So in these 7 steps to getting started with ZBrush, I cover things like that, how to optimize workflows. So after you do the manual process of adding pores and bumps, after a few, you're like, okay, this is something that I can optimize, and then I can create a custom brush that allows me to create multiple pores and things like that. Anyway, so I think this is an extended answer, so you can just get that. And just to, how are we doing with time? Oh, we have plenty of time. We have another hour. So just, this is the extra mile course that I've been talking about that is currently open, so you can sign up. We have a small window for it, so it closes on Sunday at midnight Australia time. So just make sure that if you're obviously in a different time zone, that you take that into consideration when you look at this. But yeah, it is open now. Again, it's a program that is been taking me about a year to update and to refine. It is the same it's the same course that I opened like 4 years ago and has helped heaps of students to create stuff. But this year I spent the entire year just updating it with like a new content, new tools, new workflows, and it's like super, super cool. So I'm really excited about about what the new students are going to do. And we have a new module or a new element which is called the Extra Mile Workshop. So it's a series of additional live lessons where we're going to go through the content, and that obviously is unique for this cohort of students. So if you join, you'll get that. And we have some like really cool deals that I haven't published. So, and I'm not gonna publish. I'll tell you why in a second. So if you go to the Extra Mile, you can read everything about it. There's like an overview video where I talk about what we do. But if you scroll down to some of the bonus stuff here. So these are some of the bonuses. If you click on the software licenses, it doesn't like it tells you that we have some really cool deals, but it doesn't tell you what it is. Just because I think they're really good deals, and I don't want to persuade people or like suggest that, okay, if you join the Extra Mile, you get all this really cool stuff. If I specify them, there might be students that go like, oh, I'm going to join the course just because I want to get those deals. I want people to, if you're interested in joining, I want committed people really ready to push their skills. It's not just, for the sake of, oh yeah, have more people on board. I want people that are really keen to improve themselves. So that's why I haven't shown what the deals are, but they're pretty good. So I don't want them to be a tool to get more people in, if that makes sense. Anyway, let's go back, because I know that I digress quite a bit. Where can I find the brushes for the texture of characters? That's sorry, let's go back to the ZBrush guides. You can go to resources of the ZBrush guides, and you can find a bunch of things in here. So all of these are different packs of brushes, materials, and things like that. If you click on the sculpting brushes, all of these ones are free, or I think, yeah, almost all of these ones are free. Yeah, so this is where you can get the Geo brush that I was talking about, the clay clean build-up brush. It's like a custom version of the clay brush. All of this. But yeah, feel free to explore that. That's where that's basically where I put my my custom brushes that I design for projects and things like that. How's the market for collectible today? I have no idea. I've worked with like a few things for the toy industry, but I'm not like 100% in that industry. Although I want to show you something cool, just that you mentioned it. So this is the character of the Extra Mile, and the Mimaki people printed this guy. So this is the actual character, as you can see, and it's printed as a single piece in color. So Mimaki, they have like amazing technology. I don't know. It's just, for me, it's just magic. I don't understand it. And it just prints this in color in a single piece. Like there's no joints or anything. It's a single piece. And it has like even the mask of the character. You see there's a little bit of translucency. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it in focus. So that mask, you see it has like translucent just because it's really, really thin. Yeah, so it is really cool, and it's about 30 centimeters, so it's a pretty big guy. And also, this is something completely unrelated. I think I'm digressing a little bit too much. So I don't know if you can see my t-shirt. This is the Extra Mile t-shirt. It's a bit of a 90s style, but the guy here, that's the guy. Let's see. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see. That's the guy of the Extra Mile. Anyway, so a lot of fun. Hey, Pablo, got an offer to work for 3D Print Studio. They have zero deadlines. I just could get projects and get paid by delivering. I don't know if I should do. I can make a living, but it seems nice. Yeah, sorry, that's yeah, that's very specific. Maybe that's for another time. If I had like some more references, I could potentially give you some advice. But I would know, like that's something that you would have to consider. It contains colors from ZBrush Polypaint. I think you're referring to the piece that I just showed you. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna continue working on this so that you don't get bored. While I read the comments and I talk about them, I'm just gonna continue sculpting and refining shapes like this in here. So yeah, it contains color, but it's not the polypaint, although you can. So if you create this character, for example, and your character has polypaint, you paint it with just polypaint in ZBrush, you can just export it as a Dynamesh even, or just optimize it a little bit, and yeah, it will print with that color, with vertex color. Mine doesn't have, or like that character that I just showed you, the Extra Mile, doesn't have vertex color in that particular sculpture, because one of the things that I like to do is create like more more intricate textures, more realistic ones, using Substance 3D Painter, and that's ultimately what I gave to the Mimaki guys. They took the albedo color that I sent from the textures from the 3D Painter or Substance 3D Painter textures, and then they use that. I don't know if they converted that into vertex color or what. I just know that it's just pure pure magic, and it comes out like really nice. But as far as I know, yeah, it could be just polypaint or vertex color, so all good. Let me see the next question. I continue with this. How much experience in ZBrush would I need until I can effectively learn from the Extra Mile course? I'm still new to ZBrush. Casey, that's a great question. I designed the course so that it is more for an intermediate advanced, but what I would consider an intermediate user is someone that knows how to navigate ZBrush and knows the basics, or like, you know, this is the basics of like, this is a brush, you know, as opposed of this is the Gizmo 3D. So very basic things. So a beginner to me, like how I would define a beginner to ZBrush, is someone that doesn't know how to rotate, and you know, if for instance, if this happens, so a beginner would be like, oh, if this happens, like, oh, I don't know, what am I doing, right? Like, I'm just clicking and dragging. I want to sculpt, but nothing happens. You know, these are the type of things that for a beginner is very frustrating, and I went through this myself. But once you pass that threshold of like, okay, this is just not this is a 2.5D. I understand now. I can just, you know, clear all of these, and now I'm in 3D. This to me is like already puts you in an intermediate level, right? So if you have that level of confidence of like, I know how to get into ZBrush, I know what a brush is, I know how to load brushes, that already gives you enough expertise, I would say, or enough confidence to be able to take advantage of the Extra Mile. Because ultimately, in the Extra Mile, I would go through a lot of the basics, just to make sure that whatever I'm explaining kind of like makes sense. It's just that some of the things that I talk about, I try to cover them from let's say from I would say it's specific enough for the course, but generic enough so that you can use that that workflow or the tools that I show in any scope that you want. So we talk about it from a more conceptual point of view, I guess. And I say, okay, this is a brush, or this is a technique that I use for this, and I'll show you how to do it in the character that I work on the course, like this guy here above me. But I also mention, you know, this is something that you can use for something else, you know, on your own project. So it's more about focus on learning the workflows and the tools to make it work for you, rather than following along and creating something specific, which is actually what I do in the UCG. So in the UCG, or the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course, that's the other big course I have. That's the mushroom character. So I encourage people and students to actually follow along, creating the same, or like a version of the same character, because that allows me to have a bit more control of the progress, as in just to make sure that they are, you know, following along, and that gives you the reassurance that you're actually learning something. But in the Extra Mile, because it is more targeting intermediate to advanced, someone that knows how to navigate in ZBrush, the focus is to give you the tools so that you can basically do whatever you want, really. And if you look at the students' work that I have on the website, I think only like out of all the students that I have, there's only like 2 or 3 that have created the same character in the first version of the course. The rest of them, or the rest of the students, they build their own stuff. Like, they just use the techniques and the workflows, and it's like, okay, this is giving me the tools to create the things that I want. So that's why I think it's valuable in that sense. But I know that I branch out and talk about all the stuff, but specifically, just to answer your question with a clear answer, you don't need a lot of experience in ZBrush to join the Extra Mile. As long as you know how to navigate and some of the very basic stuff, I cover a lot of other things. So yeah. All right, just to give you an idea of what I'm working on at the moment, is just playing around with the transition of those crevices and those folds that I created in the last stream, just to make sure that they integrate nicely. They're not like thick veins or anything. They're just more of a ways to break up the design a little bit, sort of like a pattern. And I'm using the clean builder brush. But if you don't have this brush, which is free from the ZBrush guides, you don't have to use it. But if you're doing something similar, you're following along, you can use the clay builder brush, and it's totally fine. It's the same thing, really. It's just that it's gonna take you a little bit longer to clean up all the striations that the clay builder brush generates by default. All right, so you see it's a little bit more integrated. I think that works. All right, let's work on some other cool things, other techniques that I can give you as I answer some other questions. Hey, JC. Thanks. Yep. All right, so that's a good reference. So JC, yeah. JC took the mushroom course, the UCG, before joining the extra mile. But yeah, that's kind of like the natural path. If you're an absolute beginner, you usually start with the UCG, and then that gives you a lot of confidence to join the extra mile. But if you know some of the basics, you can just dive right in. How much is the course? It's 897 US. So you can just go to the website and it's all in there. I just, today we open, so all the information, you can find it there, and you can read everything that that comes with it. It's at a discounted price, and I know for some people, even for me, it's I know it's a pricey option, but it is. I would say it has a lot of value, and I try to base the pricing on that value that I added in the course. When you think about it, it's over 100 videos and lessons. So if you were to just buy each individual lesson, is like about $10 or something, or less, $7, $8. But anyway, it's just more about the value. That's why I very rarely create like discount codes or things, because I think it's not fair on people that pay for the entire thing just to give away things for like, oh, this is 10% discount. Instead, every time that I launch something, I try to add value to it. Like in this case, we have the live lessons. We have, obviously now we are offering certificates, because the extra mile is kind of like the main course of the 3D concept artist, and now we are a certified academy, so we can issue certificates. You can just apply when you finish, and you get a certificate that is unique, and we have like a certification process that it is in line with all the the standards of like educational certificates and stuff like that. So that's really cool. So that's added value that I try to put into, rather than just focusing, because it's not a tutorial. It's not like you just buy the course and it's just an expensive set of videos. It is a lifetime access, really, and it gives you, we have a really nice community. I think that's one of the best things about the course, of people just wanting to learn, or some of them have, like, some of the students of the extra mile, they have already gone through the process, and they kind of like, it's funny to call them students, because they're already like fully professionals working in the industry, and their skills are way past that sort of student level, but they're still there, and they're super active. They continue to provide value, share projects, so you get access to that as well. So it's not just me that I'll be there just guiding you through certain things. You also get access to a bunch of other professionals from different industries and different backgrounds that add value to it. So that's what I use really to base on the price. I know it's a pricey option, but I'm fully committed to it, and that's part of what that's part of my job, really. So that is why. But if you cannot join this, like, I'm not trying to do like a sales pitch, really. Yeah, although that's kind of like what it sounds like. But I just know that it is a valuable content. So like I said, I'm not trying to pitch to sell it to you. So if you cannot join, or you just don't have the funds or the time or whatever, totally get it. Don't worry. There's gonna be other times and other enrollment opportunities. I'm gonna try to, now that it's out like the new version is out, I'm gonna try to do the enrollments every 3 months if I can. It all depends on the current students. The only thing that I won't be able to reassure you that I would have available is the same bonuses for this enrollment. So for this enrollment, we have, like I said, a few things that are really cool that are just for the students that enroll in this time. So some of the codes that I managed to partner up with some applications and some companies, they will only work for a certain period of time. So they're just for these students. So I might be able to ask for the same sort of deals later, but I cannot guarantee. So that's one of the things, just to mention it. Anyway, so as you can see, what I've done really here is just to play around with the transitions, the clay builder brush and the clay brush. So nothing fancy, nothing too crazy, but it looks a bit more polished, I would say. At this point, what I want to do is decide if I want to add things. Decide if I want to, variate the silhouette of the character, maybe add some interesting things or things like that. Because I can do that at this point, that is still a Dynamesh object, and then I can refine the topology and work on the details. So I can do that. Just to give you some ideas of other tools that you can use. I'm gonna give you an example of that, and then I'll go ahead and move on into clean up the topology. And I'll do that after. Let me just check if there's a question that I can answer as I do this. Hey Casey, how long would it be discounted for? So the discount is just for this release. So again, I might be able to, based on how things go, I might be able to keep it the same for the next opening, but that's the type of things that I cannot guarantee. So for now, this is like what you see now is what you get. The next time that I open it, you still have the content, you still have the community, all the good stuff, but there are like certain things, the price might change, things like that might change. So this is kind of like the first big launch, the first opening of the brand new content, and that's why I'm doing this whole like massive package. That's why, if you're registered, I'm sending you emails just to make sure that you don't miss it. Cool. Will, one thing to recommend to break out of this is what's your favorite? Oh, sorry, you're just replying to Will. Cool. Study anatomy. Do you study anatomy, or how do you create good anatomy in your creatures? Yeah, I continuously study anatomy. Like I'm not an expert by all means. I have like a rough idea how things work. And let's say my formal training, what I studied at uni ages ago, was 3D animation. So I was more focused on movement and creating like a believable movement of the, let's say, the human body or characters. So I think that subconsciously maybe made me more aware of how the body works, the body mechanics. So I have that knowledge of, in order to move the arm this way, so there are certain muscles that are pulling and that deforming. So that sort of like translate nicely into sculpting, because I kind of like have an idea, but I do try to learn around anatomy as much as I can. And every time that I start a new project, I just collect a bunch of references, open my anatomy for sculptures book, things like that, just to refresh and make sure that what I'm doing is not made up, because it's impossible to do some, well, not impossible, but if you're not as good at anatomy as other more expert artists like myself. I mean, I'm not an expert, so if I'm like them, like the anatomy experts, it will be easier, like Scott Eden or something. I'm pretty sure I can just do it off my head, but I'm not. So I need to make sure that my memory on how certain muscles and certain things work is not playing a trick on me. So I need to just use reference and study constantly. Alrighty. So here's the cool technique. So I'm gonna select the let's try this snake curve too. Let's see if that does something. And I'm gonna enable Sculptris Pro. And let's enable Sculptris Pro. And I'm gonna work on just one side, and then I'll mirror and weld it. So this will allow you to create a curve. So I'm gonna do a nice looking curve like so, right? And because I have Sculptris Pro, it's kind of like a dynamic dynamesh. So it's going to dynamesh things as I move things along. And I'm going to increase my brush size slightly. And I'm going to push things out like so. Ooh, that's a little bit too much. Maybe that's not the one I want. I'm going to do a quick save just in case. Yeah, I think this is a little bit too much. It's too crazy. There we go. So this is basically a curve that allows you to do this type of things. Maybe if I pull it from the top. Yeah, something like this. This is what I wanted to create, some kind of like weird, noodle stuff. Again, this is just using these brushes. They're like more experimental than anything. These ones right here, the snake curve 1, 2, 4, and 5. I'm wondering why I don't know why there's not a number 3. That's weird. Maybe there was a number 3 and I deleted it. I don't know. So snake curve 1, 2, 4, and 5. They're very experimental, but they allow you to create this really weird looking stuff. So let's just do another one with a smaller brush size. When you use Sculptris Pro, the smaller the brush, the more resolution it will add. All right, so that's kind of cool. And I'm gonna create another one here for the back. I'm gonna do it again. So from here, maybe curls up like so. I'm just when I do this type of things like the curling, for instance, just to let you into what I'm thinking as I design this is the functionality of the design. So let's say that I'm gonna push this out, and I'll show you why I'm trying to do it this way. So right now the character is standing kind of like in a relaxed, A pose. But if this was an actual cartilage or something in the back of the character, I would assume that over time, like if the character needs to bend forward or backward or whatever, it will need to have enough surface or material, let's say, to deform. So that's when it's in a curl position, or like the torso is bent forward or something like that. This portion that I just curled up is going to be a bit more stretched to allow for that movement. That's kind of like the idea behind it of what I'm thinking about it. All right, so that is kind of like another cool thing that you can use. This one is, like I said, it's a little bit more random than anything. If you want to have a bit more control, what you can do as well is, I'll show you. I'm gonna use the where is it? I'm gonna play displacement. Yeah, the displace curve. So this one is more control. It's just displacing the geometry. So I can do that and then just pull. Oh, why is it not doing it? Oh, there we go. So that's kind of like what this one does. Maybe it gives you a more control approach to do this. Just another option. The other option that is also probably more control even is using the move brush and masking. So I'm going to use this mask. This is a custom masking brush. You can also download this one from the ZBrush Guides website. It's just a sharper, mask pen. So you can do that. So for example, here, I can just go ahead and mask a portion like so, maybe just to be in line with what I'm doing. Invert that mask, maybe blur it a little bit. Actually, the other way around. Blur it and blur it like so. And then I have the move brush, and I can use AccuCurve or not, and I can just start pulling this out based on the mask to create these sort of shapes. So like I said, this gives you a much more control approach, and I'll show you something else that is pretty cool. So yeah, I think this pattern is working, is making things a bit interesting. So when I do that, because I'm not using Sculptris Pro, I'm going to turn on the polyframe so you can see. The other ones, the other pieces that I use with that sort of crazy brush, it automatically adds volume. But in this case, because it's just pulling things that I already have, it's actually distorting the polygons. So something cool that you can do with this technique is that you have the control key or modifier to access your masking brush. You have your normal brush, which is in this case is the move brush, and then if you press the shift key, you have your smoothing brush. However, you can enable this Sculptris Pro just for the smooth brush, or well, you can enable it in general in a general sense, but it doesn't work with the move brush and it doesn't work with the control brush. So holding shift, it accesses this. I'm gonna click on that, and you see now if I press the shift key, my cursor is not blue, but it's this color, and I can go ahead and just add volume like so. So it becomes more like a resolution brush than anything. I can reduce my brush size if I want to add maybe more resolution, and then just bring it to the same level. And because I have the rest mask, it's not affecting the rest. So that it is a pretty cool thing. So let me just replicate this workflow one more time, just so that it is clear. So maybe here, I'm gonna mask this area, right, for something like this. Blur it a little bit, invert it, and use the move brush, sort of pull this out. And if let's say the edge is not as thick as you want it, another thing you can do is switch to the inflate brush. And because you have the Sculptris Pro enabled, you can add, let me just go into poly frame, you can add volume to just the edge of this swirly thing as you define it. And then we can smooth this out just to add resolution. I mean, you don't have to, you can just redynamize the whole thing, but that's one way of doing it. All right, so I think that's looking good. Maybe we can add a few more actually. That would be cool. So let's go back here. So control. Like so. Blur it, invert it, and then use the move brush again. By the way, this is another cool technique that you can use for clothing, like to just create like extreme folds. So that's something you can use. I'm gonna go ahead and give it some resolution to this whole thing just by smoothing. Alrighty. And I'm just gonna smooth this out a bit. All right, so that's not too bad. What I'm gonna do is mirror and weld everything just so that we have it on the other side. That's not bad. And I'm gonna use the move brush with AccuCurve just to adjust this a bit, because again, this is cool, but I'm also gonna mask out my arm so that I don't mess with it with symmetry. So hang on. All right, so I can just do this thing because this is very, it's sort of random how it creates these shapes. So I like to refine them as well, kind of like what we did after the C sketch in last session, just to make sure that it feels more intentional than this. I think we can connect these two, or make them so that it feels more connected. There we go. I'm going to use the move topological just to pull this out a little bit so that they don't blend with the body too much. Should have like looked at that first. All right. Okay, something like this, I think it works. What I'm going to do now is going over the whole thing again with the clay or the clean builder brush without Sculptris Pro. And I'm going to smooth things out and just add a little bit of volume just to make sure that, again, this feels part of the same. So all of these material or these pieces, they kind of like integrate nicely with the rest of the body. And obviously they will have some sort of weight or mass to it, so potentially they will pull certain areas. So that's kind of like what I'm trying to achieve here. By the way, if you're working with like a thin surface and you don't want to sculpt the other side, you can also enable the back face masking. So in this area, I can just go ahead and do this, and it's not gonna affect the other side. And I think with this, once I finish this part, we can just retopologize the whole thing really quickly and clean it up even more. But you see how like the whole expression, the whole thing has changed as we develop this a bit further. So this is the whole idea of, you know, 3D concept arting, like as in designing or sketching in 3D as well. Like you can start with something that is very well defined in your ideas, on your head, and then just work from that, or you can just jump in 3D and start playing around with these things. So we have about 20 minutes. I think we will be able to just work on that topology quickly and clean this up. But obviously, before I do that, it's important to make sure that the secondary forms and the transitions are working nicely. But I think it's working. So I'm kind of like happy with these weird shapes. And they're transitioning nicely as well. So maybe here we need a bit more of volume. All right, let me just see also the chat, see if we have something else. Hey Sean, an extra miler here in the house. Welcome. Thanks, hands down. Awesome. I'm glad that you think so. Frankie, where can I get ZBrush glove that you're wearing? The ZBrush glove. Oh, this thing. I don't know. I got it from the ZBrush Summit this year. I don't know where they got it from, but you can just get them online. Just type like artist glove, or yeah, I think you can get them online. Like, so I have a few of them. Is that this one has the branding? I got it in the ZBrush Summit. I don't know if they sell them or anything. Hey Gabroche, like, oh, okay, so another extra miler here, so you joined the original one. Awesome. So glad that you're part of the new version as well. Would I still have the workshop, the live sessions? So to answer that, this is just a question more specifically about the students of the Extra Mile. So the live sessions or the Extra Mile workshop, it is it's a module just for the new cohort. But I sent you an email, I think yesterday or the day before, that it is, you can purchase just that access to this current group, not like for the entire amount, but just because you're already part of the Extra Mile, you can, you know, add this add-on, let's say, or this extra to the workshop and just join the live sessions. But if you don't do it, don't worry, you still have access to the other live sessions, like the feedback, the Q&A, all of that. That's still part of the you know, the package of the Extra Mile. It's just that for this cohort, we are doing the workshop, which is slightly different, but you can join if you kind of like purchase that bit only. Feel free to message me directly on the community, and I can answer those questions. How far I'm taking this beluga guy? I think this is far enough. I don't know. Maybe we can just leave it for, you know, continue the next time that I jump on a live session. But I think it's getting there. I mean, I just did it to show some of the techniques that I would use. Nothing else. All right. We'll see how we go. we're gonna go ahead and duplicate that, and I'm gonna drop these guys into the folder because these are the old versions. I'll duplicate that one more time, and I want to take this one. This is a duplicate, exactly the same thing as what I have here. I'm going to do a mirror and well just to double check, because with Sculptris Pro, there might be an issue with, discrepancies between the one side and the other. And another thing that I like to do whenever I use Sculptris Pro or have triangulation is to run a quick close hole. So if I click on that, it should close any little tiny hole that would appear, and that's it. I mean, texture, etc. Yeah, we can do. Yeah, we can do that. I mean, we can do some poly paint for sure. Depending on how it comes out in terms of detailing and all of that, we might take it into Substance or something. I don't know. Yeah, so the temp workshop is part of this cohort. Yeah, the temp workshop is part of the new, like, this new launch. So if you join between today and Sunday, you get that module of the workshop. If you don't, because you have already purchased the original one, you can join at a very minimal price, because it's just to join the new cohort of students, basically. But if you don't do it, we still do the live sessions for feedback and for Q&A, so that's still included anyway. All right, Will, have a good one. Cool. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it a single polygroup, and what I'm gonna do is set my polygon count to be, I think 5,000 should be all right. Maybe, let's leave it as it is. Symmetry, and I'm gonna run my dynet to sub-D macro. So for the extra milers here, you probably already seen this, but this is something that is part of the sculpting module. So I'll show you how to create all of those macros as well, so that you just click one button, and I'll explain the process and why I'm thinking about doing this. So yeah, just one single button, and now I have subdivision levels. Let's go ahead and reconstruct one more. So we have 3 subdivision levels. So we have a nice base that looks all right. I mean, this is perfect for this sort of concept. So yeah, I think that works fine. And if we go to the 3rd subdivision level with 368,000, we have all of these, basically the Dynamesh projected automatically into it. So what I'm gonna do is run a very quick polish. Oh, maybe that is a little bit too much. Let's try smooth. Yeah, just to smooth things out. And you see, now that we have a cleaner topology, it's a lot easier to smooth things out. And I'm gonna go over, let's also turn back on the ice. I'm gonna go over certain areas quickly just to refine the volumes, especially in the areas that I added, like those wiggly things, gills or whatever these are. They're not gills, are they? They're kind of like flares. I don't know how you call these things, but so we have a relatively low polygon count right now, so that allows me to work the main shapes still before I before we subdivide and add some more details, which is probably something that we can do next session, I guess. But because we have been kind of like transition things nicely as we add volumes and all of that, there's not a lot of cleanup to do. So this is a fairly clean mesh. It's mostly these areas here. All right, not too bad. I think I'm gonna use the inflate brush just to add a bit of thickness to this, because I don't want this to be some kind of like jellyfish skirt. That's what I'm thinking. It's more of a thicker you know, something that, I don't know, something like that this creature could actually be in control, like not just part of a lymphatic system or anything like that. It's just something that has some kind of like musculature or things at the base so that he can control it. So he can use it to move faster or to displace water or whatever, right? So I'm just wanna add it a little bit of thickness as I think about the story of this guy. And this is one of the main things as well in the extra mile. I know I keep mentioning, but again, I'm super excited with the enrollment today. So one of the things in the extra mile when there is a section called design with a story, where we basically, as we progress in the sculpting process, we start to think more about the story and what the character or whatever creature you're working on lives in, like the environment and things like that. And that alone, just creating a very simple story, it allows you to sort of justify some of the design choices that you make. It's like, oh, why is this guy having these things? It's like, okay, it's on the water, and it's one of the things that allows him to move faster, like silently, maybe, instead of displacing a lot of water with the big arms and the big fins. He can just use these to like make subtle movements without, again, displacing too much water, and then it will be more of a silent ninja or something. On the water ninja. Anyway, so that's part of the idea, really, of what I'm thinking. All right, so I know that this part that I just did doesn't look like much because I've been just smoothing things and blending things together. Maybe this needs an extra pass. There we go. But this is what takes time, really. It's a repetitive process, but it's essential if you want to make sure that whatever you add, no matter how weird things look, they feel part of the same design, or like it's plausible, right? That's what I've been saying. Alrighty. Let me check. Okay, we have like 10 minutes, 5 minutes. So I think in terms of like the refinement or the sculpting, we can leave it here. Maybe let's just add one extra level of subdivision. So we have 1.4 million polygons. Just to show you what would be the next step. Again, I could use something like the ZBrush. And then once I have this clean topology, I can sort of refine certain areas a bit more. Like so. Wherever there is like a bit of more of a pinching effect. Right, so again, all of this is kind of like the same. There's no like a hidden secret with a hidden technique. It's just more of the same. Yeah, so that's kind of like what I would go ahead and do as a next step, just refining those crevices, make sure that it's not everywhere that I'm like cutting through. It's just like when I think there will be some pinching, whatever helps the design, really. All right, so yeah, that will be the next step. Just to wrap up today's session, let's go ahead and duplicate this guy, drop it in there so we have it as a reference. And I'm gonna go ahead and use something like this soft brush. This is just the standard brush with some settings so that I don't have to manually toggle them off, but it doesn't have any Z add or Z sub, and it has the RGB. And I can just go ahead and paint some stuff. So let's go for a base color. Let's switch to the skin material. Hang on. Why is it not letting me? weird. Okay, so now let's add something like this. And let's go ahead and do a quick paint. I'm gonna use the compute button for the ambient occlusion. So it's just gonna mask out some areas of the ambient occlusion. I'm gonna invert that and I'm gonna hide it. So go into the masking tools, hide that mask, and I'm gonna select a similar tone, fill out some areas very quickly. I'm gonna also go for a darker bluish tone, more like a gray, just to paint some areas here. I don't know. This is just kind of like setting up the palette, nothing too crazy now. Probably can play with some interesting patterns when we get to it, but you know, this is a quick pass to sort of establish a palette that could work with this character. Let's go ahead and switch to something else. I'm gonna change spray, and I'm gonna change to a alpha. What is it? Alpha 8. So just give me something different. I'm gonna reduce the color variation. This is within the stroke palette, by the way. And I'm just gonna select something a bit more on the maybe greenish hues, just for this front part. I'm also gonna turn on back facing. So let's say if I paint here, it won't go on the other side. So this is a cool way of, you know, protecting certain areas. And I just want to create like a nice sort of gradation of color. And let's go for something more on the orangey tones. And I think like this is fine. I mean, you can create like very interesting complex patterns, but I think this could be cool. You know, keeping it simple sometimes is good. Maybe let's clean this up a bit more. All right, cool. So there you have it. The beluga guile, the beluga whale guy. You know, work in progress, but I think you get the idea, and it has like some cool techniques that you can apply to other projects, and it definitely looks like a weird guy. All right, let me just see one last minute question. Kid, I'm a little late today, and so no worries. Hey Javier, another extra miler here, no worries. What is the function of the compute button? The function of the compute button is to analyze the object, and wherever there is like a contact shadow, or like where the ambient occlusion is, like an occluded area, is going to create a mask. So this comes with ZBrush. It's just a plugin. So you go to ZBrush or Z plugin and go to ambient occlusion and click on compute, and you can just tweak the settings, but I use the default ones, and I just have this button here. So it just creates a mask for the occluded area. So it's just a quick way to get started with a nice palette of colors. Is polypaint specifically to concept quickly the character colors, or does it have more uses? No, you can do like really intricate textures with polypaint. One of the things that I actually cover in the extra mile is just polypaint with HD. So you can do geometry HD with like millions and millions of polygons with polypaint, and then create like really intricate textures. I have some, you know, concepts that I've created that are like the texture base is 100% polypaint. So yeah, there's definitely different ways of approaching it. If you want, in the just go to the tutorials page of the ZBrush guides. And just type polypaint here. Polypaint here. So if you click on this polypaint skin textures, it's just a tutorial on creating a realistic, or close to realistic texture for skin, just using poly paint. So I cover how to do that, some techniques on creating like the variation of the albedo, things like that. So it just goes through the whole process of creating a texture that is realistic, cool looking, and it's all poly paint. Of course, you can use more advanced texturing, which I also cover in the course and the extra mile, which is just the Substance 3D painter. But this is the Substance 3D painter is more advanced because it allows you to split channels or work in different things like the roughness, the translucency, all of that separately, which is ultimately going to give you a much more advanced realistic effect than polypaint. Polypaint is just vertex color, nothing else. But this is just to show you that you can create something very convincing just using polypaint. And that's about it, guys. So once again, just for those of you who are here late, just want to reiterate that the the Extra Mile course is finally open. So we opened today, really exciting, and we're gonna be, this whole week is enrollment week. We are finishing on Sunday the 19th my time. So if you're in a different time zone, just make sure that you factor that in. That is Sunday the 19th. Sunday the 19th at 11:59 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time. So make sure that you check that out if you want to join. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me by email or in any of my social medias. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Again, this week is just about enrolling, so I'll be available for any questions that you might have. And everything is covering here. If you have more questions than these ones that are here, so I try to cover some of the frequently asked questions, I'll send you an email, and or we can have a quick chat. That's it for today, guys. Hopefully this has been of help. I'll probably just do a quick save here now. I'll save it as it is, and we can continue working on this guy, maybe playing around with some custom brushes just to add some cool details, and I'll just give you a quick sneak peek of what we could do. So maybe some creature work. All right, something like this. I'm gonna turn off the polypaint just so I can show you this cool, like a sneak preview of what we can do next time. All right, so we can go ahead and do some cool surface details like so with custom brushes, just to create a much more of a, like an in-between this beluga whale that is pretty soft and clean, but maybe with some DNA from a blue whale or like a sperm whale or something like that to add like those bumpy areas. That would be pretty cool. And I can also show you some other techniques like this to enhance the details and do like something like that. Anyway, we'll cover that next time. Just wanted to show you because it's kind of cool to go through it. So I'll leave it like that, and I'll see you next time. All right, guys. Again, if you have any questions about the Extra Mile, feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to answer the questions, and all good. Cool, guys. So I'll see you next time. I'll just check the calendar. I'm not sure when the next time would be to go live on ZBrush, but just check the calendar, and I'll be there. All right. So that's it for today. See you guys next time.